Hello friends, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how you will use Azure AD with SSO for .NET Core Web API and Angular. We're going to use Angular 18 and this is the complete guide to your authentication and authorization mechanism integration. So this video will be very interesting and useful. A lot of people are looking for this kind of an Azure AD with SSO video. So come, let's get started. So friends, before we dive in, this is the GitHub link where you will find every single project that I'm demonstrating. So feel free to go through and browse whichever project you like. For this specific video, I will post the exact link of the repository in the video description itself. If you would like to follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and GitHub, these are the links that you can click and follow me. I will be more than happy to collaborate with you. So don't forget to follow me. Now let's dive into the video. So before I go ahead and show you where is the code, how you can implement all of these things, first let's understand how things are working with Azure AD and what is Azure AD and all of those important aspects. Let's understand, and then I will show you the demo of two applications, and then I will walk you through step by step of how you can implement. Okay, so stay focused and come, let's dive in. Azure AD, formerly they are called Azure Active Directory. From last 1 year, it has been called Entra ID. So Azure AD is nothing but Azure Entra ID. All right. What is Azure AD? Azure Active Directory, which is Azure AD, is a Microsoft cloud-based identity and access management service. It helps the organization manage the user identities and control the access to the applications and service securely. Azure AD is an essential part of the modern authentication infrastructure for both cloud and on-premises application, enabling the security and user identity management. So now we know what is Azure AD. Basically, this is a identity management, and because this is provided by the Microsoft Azure and Microsoft Azure is a cloud-based, this identity management is called cloud-based identity management. They are also called IDP. Okay. So now let's understand how this Azure AD is used. Azure AD serves as an identity provider. Like I said, it's an IDP for applications. It allows the application to authenticate users and issue an access token. And then it manages the user permissions. Developers integrate the Azure AD into the applications for the following reason. It provides a secure user authentication, and because this is using a OAuth 2.0 and OpenID Connect protocols, you can implement single sign-on, that is what it's called SSO, allowing the users to access multiple applications with a single login. So you log in once and that's it. If 10 applications are configured, you can go around all the 10 applications without individually logging into each one. That is what we are going to see in the demo. And then they can also manage the user roles and permissions for the applications. We can also integrate this with the other identity provider, enabling the federation with the Google, Facebook, etc. A lot of stuff we can do. So why Azure AD? Why not something else, right? So Azure AD, this has a lot of benefits. So enhanced security. Azure AD provides multi-factor authentication, which is also called MFA, conditional access, and advanced threat protection, making it a secure platform for authentication and authorization. It supports SSO. With SSO, users signs in once and gain access to multiple apps without needing to log in again and again. It has a scalability feature. Azure AD integrates seamlessly with other Microsoft products and scales to support the millions of users. Users and group management. You can define roles and assign permission to users and groups, improving the access control. It also has identity federation. Azure AD supports the federated identity, allowing users from external identity providers like Google to authenticate in your app. It also has an integration with Microsoft 365. So Azure AD is the backbone for actually Microsoft 365 authentication, making it ideal for organizations already using Microsoft tools. Alright, enough theory, right? I will go ahead and explain you how things are working. Before we do any of the other things, let's first understand we are focusing on identity provider. That's why it's called IDP. An identity provider is the one that is used for the application to securely do authentication and authorization. Now, if you come out of this Azure, there are other identity providers. You can use identity providers for identity server. There's the concept which is a separate one. So there are other different identity providers, but we are referring to the cloud, and one of the cloud providers is the Azure. From Azure, there are three more identity concept. One is Azure AD, that is what we are going to see. Another two are Azure AD B2C, B2B. B2B is business to business. In the previous video, I've explained more about business to business, and there are multiple videos in my channel talks about business to business and business to consumers, which is B2C. Okay, so we are not going to do anything related to B2B or B2C. This is one of the important identity concept in Azure. Okay, now let's take a look at the demo. I have two identical application. Okay, one is running on this port, one is running on 4300, one is running on 4200, which means there are two Angular application running on two different ports, and this is one of the back end supported web API, okay, that is running on 4351. So let's take another one, 44. All right, so one Angular app with one backend and another Angular app with a different backend. Though the codes are same, I have slightly changed the code for me to prove you that I'm using two different applications. Okay, so two different APIs, two different application. If you see the 4200 one, it shows it's app 1. The 4300 shows app 2. Now let's take a look at the API also. If I go to any of these are the endpoints, every endpoint is protected except this. Okay, it is intentionally. So if I run this, what do we get? App 2. So Angular app 2 talks to this API, and let's go and check this one. This one doesn't have anything, which means this is a different endpoint. Okay, so this 44351 is going to come from one of the app, and the other one is going to come from another one of the app. Okay, so we are going to take a look. Now, first thing is Azure AD. Azure AD, based on my explanation, if you have understood, Azure AD is primarily used for an organization. Alright, let's say there's a company called Learn Smart Coding. Okay, that's an organization. Okay, so that organization, there are multiple employees. Let's say you and me are employees of that organization. Okay, which means you and me or anyone who is an employee of that organization will be a user in the Azure AD. Okay, I will show you. Now, as a user, for me, when I come to my company's website, like any of the application which the company has launched, only one time I wanted to log in. After that, if I go to multiple application within my company, I should have a good experience of just going to that application automatically instead of keep logging in. Okay, why? Whenever you actually log in, you'll be logging in with your username and your domain credential. If you're already working in an IT company, you probably know you will be logging with your username and your password, which is called domain password, right? So that is what the user is. The user is under a domain. So for good, clear? Now, I am going to show you how I log in with this application. I'm going to log in. It is asking me to which one I should log in. Alright, because I already logged in, it's showing me one of my remembered one. So I have a user called Karthik, and the company is learnsmartcoding.onmicrosoft.com. So from the Microsoft perspective, I am a client for Microsoft. I'm a tenant for Microsoft. Okay, remember, I'm a tenant for Microsoft. So this is the user's email ID. So let's say I wanted to use this. Okay, it's asking me password. Good. I gave the password. I'm going to sign in. No, I don't want to remember. Okay, it's signed in, right? The token came, and then it is showing me all the tokens. See, my name, all of the other details, the name, all of this client audience. Pay attention here. when we got this one, it starts with C69. Okay, that's the audience. This is the application's ID. I'll show you that. Now let's say I click on this endpoint. This is basically an endpoint. I will show you. When I click on this, if I go to network, you will see it is calling an endpoint, and basically it is calling 44351 endpoint. That's the one of the API that we saw, right? It is calling there, and it is also sending the bearer token. That's why we are receiving the response. So if I click on this, it did call it and it did respond. There's no data. I'll say okay. If I call this, it returns the data. This endpoint is accessible without authorization, and it just returns the data, right? Good. Now remember this, I'm going to refresh. It still says I didn't log in. Okay, great. Now I'm going to click on any of this endpoint by showing you what happens. Because these two applications are created using Azure AD and is residing under one organization, SSO comes into picture now. If I click on credit card now, it won't ask you to log in, but you saw in a flickering of moment, it came back with the token automatically based on the credentials that I used here. So I am the user who logged in here. I am trying to access another other API, which is app2, automatically came, right? It issued a token, correct? Now if I click on this, you will see an data coming up. If I click this, it is calling a different endpoint. That's why right now you see some data, but for this you didn't see data, right? Because I just wanted to show you and prove you that it is actually calling two same endpoints but two different application. Okay, if I go here, this is same, and see it also says app2. Okay, I will show you all of these things in the Visual Studio Code also, like Visual Studio application when I open the API. But you know this is all happening, right? So what is the SSO? Basically, the moment you have these two registered, it automatically knows how it is doing. I'll explain you when we register all the application and see how it is working, right? So this is the demo of the application. And I wanted to show you one more thing. This application has one registration, so you can see audience is C69. You look at this audience is not the same. So this is also, I'm trying to prove you we are really working on two different applications. Okay, two different things, everything is different. So seamless single sign-on experience you can even experience in the local. If you deploy this application to if I deploy this application to Azure website, same thing. If you have one of the user on my account, okay, you navigate to any of my application on the same tab, you will be able to log in automatically. That's the beauty. So if you take any of the calls which is going out and take the bearer token, right? This bearer token, if you take this till here, if you go to jwt.ms and put this, it will decode this token and show you. Here it will show the app ID and my name, the all of the informations it will show, to which under which organization is coming, what is the name, all of those things are coming, right? Great. So now you know how things are working. So for example, right, let me show you one more time. I'm going to log off both the application. I logged off here, which is gone, but here it is still there. Okay, now let's click this, it's coming. So let's log off this also. Okay, now if I log in here, look at this, I'm going to log in here. It is asking me, it is asking my password. It's asking my password. I entered the password. I logged in. See, action required, ask later. That's because it's a new user. It is asking you to set up all of those things. It got into the application, right? Now if I try to do this, you will not get the login screen. Instead, it is going and coming back with a token, and it automatically came. It won't ask you to log in again. All right, so this is the application now. Okay, so let's do this, right? When you go to the github.com and take the code that I'm going to give you, you will download and see these 4 applications. I gave you this whole set for you to make it easy. Like anyone who's interested in Azure AD and SSO, they are supposed to come here and download all of this code. So then life is easy, right? You don't need to scramble about the code. So this API and this web is one set of application. This two are one set of application. Wherever you see web, it's Angular 18. Whatever you see in the web API is .NET Core 8 web API. Okay. So like I said, there are 2 applications running parallelly. You can see those 2 applications are running here. Okay. This is what I was talking about. And let's take a look at one of the application and show you the data coming up. So if I go to Claims Controller, this one which is running, right? How do I see which is running? If we go to launch setting, you see this, it's running on 4351. So for 4351 port where the application is running, if I go to the Claims Controller, see app2 is sending. If I minimize this and go to this one, the Claims Controller, there is no app2, right? And this is running on port. If you go to properties, launch setting, it is running on 44351. Okay, that's the difference. So we know there are 2 different apps registered differently, and it is allowing us to do this concept. Now let's take an important look at, let's take a important step, which is Azure AD registration, where you will register the applications and make this happen. Okay, so we're going to take a look at that. Alright, so first log into the portal. I logged into the portal, portal.azure.com. In the search, you type Azure Active Directory, or you can also type Microsoft Enter ID, both the same. Click on it, you will land on this kind of a overview page. Okay, this is, again, when you log in, this is your Azure AD. Okay, here in the left side menu, you have a lot of options, and one of the options is app registration. Click on new registration, and you're going to register application one by one. First, I'm going to register our expense tracker UI app, and I will name it as app2 because app1 I already created. I will show you that. There are 3 options supported type. We are going to choose this single tenant first one because other options are not applicable for us. I have explained in one of the video. They're all for dealing with other companies also. It will be very difficult for us to manage the users from other company. So we will use the first one, which is what we have to do for Azure AD, single tenant. After that, redirect URI. After that, the redirect URI. So because this is UI application, we are going to choose as single page application, and we are going to give where this is redirecting. Okay, locally running, that's why this port. If you deploy, you have to specify that the deployed version port. Okay, now after you created application, you landed here, right? Here there are 2 important things and other important things that you need to do. First thing is client ID and tenant ID. Tenant ID is nothing but a directory ID. Client ID is nothing but the application ID. I'm going to open up our I'm going to bring up our Angular application and show you what is the minimum change that you need to do. Okay, let me minimize this. Go to the environment.ts under the environment folder. Okay, all of the setup is already done. You need to come and change these value. Copy the client value, the client ID. Come here and place the client ID. Similarly, copy the tenant ID and come and place it in the tenant ID field. Okay, we need to fill up the read scope and write scope, which we will do shortly. But these 2 once you copy, let's move on to our backend API app registration. Now, one application we registered, the second application is our .NET Core Web API. So I'm going to name the same thing app2. For my understanding, this is API app2. The previous one was UI. Again, this is also same. First one we will choose and take the port that it is running. Select web, copy paste whatever the port for this application. Okay, do not choose anything else. After you finish the redirect URI, again you will land on the overview plate. Same thing, we are going to copy the client ID and tenant ID and replace it in the .NET Core Web API settings. Remaining and all we will do later. Okay, so before that, let's click on expose an API. Click on application ID URI, which will be auto generated. It's okay, do a save. Good, we will first create 2 scopes. Scopes are nothing but something that you're limiting resources. Okay, based on the scope that you create, a meaningful scope, you can actually use that in your APIs, controllers or specific methods to see whether that scope is coming or not, or you can request for a different scope. Now we will create two scope called expense.read, expense.write. On Azure AD, when you create a scope name you have to give, and you have to say who can consent. I'm saying admins and user. So you fill up all of these things. Okay, basically when you do all of these things and then try to log in, very first time for the user, it will ask for these consent. Probably I will create a new user and show you how that consent will look. Okay, so read scope we created. The next one is the write scope. Remember, scopes will be attached to the application ID URI. You can see exactly the ID / expense.write is coming. Correct? So you can see that. Okay, so for the API, after you create an app registration for the API, you need to come to the expose an API, and you're exposing two scopes. Okay, because we are just telling, we are just kind of generating access key and then exposing it. Who will consume it? That we will see. So let's fill up all of this add scope consent, and then click on add scope. The two scopes are created. Now let's copy these two scopes, go to the Angular application and paste it in the read scope and write scope respectively. I'm going to change this as right, because application URI, right, / the scope name. This is very important. If this changes, nothing will work. So whatever you create, copy that and put it into the Angular application. Done. So for good. Now let's copy this client ID and the tenant ID. Go back to the web API. This is the web API for one of the application. In our case, it's application 2. So we copied the client ID, we pasted it. We copy the tenant ID, we're going to paste it. Good. Read scope, write scope is same. Expense.read, expense.write. And then instances login.microsoftonline.com. Everything is same. The two things that you replaced is those two, client ID, tenant ID. I'm going to restart this. I will explain you more about what settings are still required, but this is what you need to copy from the Azure AD. Let's go back to application registration and go to the UI registration that you just did. Okay, now we are saying, hey, this UI will be able to access the API. So for that, go to API permission, click on add permission, choose API my organization users, select the one that we just created it, like the one that we just exposed it. Because you exposed here it was allowing you to select. After you do that, click on add admin consent. Everything will become green. This is super important. After that, the Azure AD registration concept is done. Okay, so one set of application is configured. Now you saw, if you go to this Azure AD and then go to app registration, what we did was expense tracker, app2, UI and the API. These two only we did. Before I started this demo, I actually did this one, the single tenant UI and one. So basically this one and this one is for one of the application. This one and this one is for the second application. So if you learned second application in my video, do exactly same thing. Create a new registration of UI and the API that you configure exactly in the second set of application, right? So if you're taking these two, this will be one set of application. You do a registration again, configure it here. That will be the second set of registration. Okay. So when you get the code, already everything will be there. You just may not work for you because the users will be not valid. You let me know in the comment section or reach out to me through one of the website that I will give you in the link. I will create a user for you and you remember the password and you can use it. Okay. For the demo. If not, you create everything from your side, deploy it, run it, and it should work. So we created two sets of registration. Now, who will be able to log in? Somebody has to log in, right? Who can log in is because this is my organization, which is my login. If I go to users, like search here, users, you will come here. Whoever is user here. So in like for understanding purpose, right? This is the company. Currently 1, 2, 3, 7 employees are there. Only these 7 employees will be able to log in, because this is a single tenant and the users who belong to the organization only will be able to log in. Okay, so let's say you do not have any users for you. All what you have to do is come to users, click on new user. I'm going to create another user. Okay, Kannan @ look at this is very important. For you, it will come as your organization name. Like, let's say you created with an email ID, that email ID dot on microsoft.com, it will come like that. So I'm going to copy this, basically Kannan @ learn smart coding gmail at like dot on microsoft.com, right? So this is my username. This is fine. Display name Kannan. This is the default password. I'm going to copy. Don't worry, it'll ask me to change. Okay, now let's go to properties. Basically, we're creating a user. Okay, I'm going to say Karthik Kannan is member, and you can fill up all of these things. I will say I'm architect. Company name is the company that basically this is the same company. So there are reasons why these properties are there. If you guys are not aware of it, there are a lot of concepts going on. So generally, when you take an offer and join as an employee, actually these informations will be provided. For example, your employee ID is $100 generator, right? They'll be here. Let's say I'm on IT team. Okay, so IT, based on these properties, right? Actually, you can automatically give some roles and groups. That's called dynamically assigning the roles and groups. They are part of intro ID concept. Let's not deviate ourselves, but these properties are not dummy. There are reasons why these properties are there. Okay, now I'm going to leave everything, go to assignment, roles and groups. One of the user was keen on this. I will definitely make a video on the next video. We'll talk about groups and roles, all of this stuff with Azure AD. Okay, let's go to review create. Password you can see one more time if you want. I'm going to create. Access successfully created. Okay, now I'm going to log out and log in with that application. So log out, great, all logged out. Okay, I'm going to log in with the new user and see how the concerns are coming. Let's say I'm trying to log in with, let's say, some email ID. Log in with some random name. Let's say it is really there. Okay, see, it will try to find out there's no such email ID, so it will reject. If there is a real email ID that is mapped to a Microsoft, it will allow you to log in, but the moment you log in, it will then reject that you're not part of my organization. Let's do this try. Okay, before I do a real login, what you do, take my application. When this kind of screen comes, try to log in with your portal login, your Azure portal login. Because your Azure portal login is valid, it will allow you to log in, but when you finish logging in, it will reject you, saying that you're not part of learnsmartcoding.gmail.on-microsoft.com. You do not belong to that, so it will reject you. Try that out. Okay, and let me know in the comment section what happened to you. Now let's log in with the real one. Kannan @ learnsmartcoding.gmail.on-microsoft.com. That's the username. Next, I'm going to copy paste the password first time. It detects that it's a password that was generated by the Microsoft, so it is asking me to change it. I am going to change it, which I will give you in the description. Don't worry. No thanks. Ask later. This is the MFA thing. See, this is what I was referring to. Very first time, you remember the read scope and the write scope that we did? It is asking us that these are the consent. It is asking the consent from the user. Hey, if you proceed further, this application is going to read all of this information and all of those things. It's just showing up thing, right? Next, it is basic profile. It is going to read, the application should be able to read my name, my email ID and all of those things. That's what it is saying. Okay, to whom it is registered is also it's saying accept. Then only it is allowing it to log in. But if I log out and try to log in, it won't show the consent again, because I already gave the consent, right? That's why it is not showing the consent, it is directly taking it here. Okay, that's the reason. So don't worry if the consent is not coming. Consent will come only when you are the first time user. Okay, now we are able to see this demo. See, automatically same content is only is going to come here because I logged in with the content. If I log out and log in with something else like the Karthik, it's going to do the Karthik. So for example, before that, let's log out here, login. So I'm going to log in and choose this time Karthik, password. If I go to this one and say credit card, it would have got my IPs. Great. See, Karthik came. Okay, so this is called SSO thing. So how SSO works? Let me explain you how SSO works. So what is SSO? Single sign-on, which allows user to authenticate once and gain access to multiple independent application without having a sign-in again for each app. That is what we saw in the demo. Azure AD handles the authentication centrally, issuing the tokens for each app based on the user's initial authentication. So Azure AD handles authentication centrally, issuing the tokens for each app based on the user's initial authentication. How SSO works in Azure AD? Let's understand that. The user logs into one application, which is app 1 using Azure AD. Token issuance will happen next. Azure AD issues an ID token for the front end and an access token for the backend API. Next step is SSO across apps. When the user navigates to another application called app2 in the same session, they are automatically authenticated because Azure AD remembers the initial sessions. No need for the user to log in again. You saw that, right? It never asked you to log in again. Both were logged off. You logged in one, go to the second one, click on the APIs or climb back. It automatically went, authenticated, came back with the token. That's how it works. The last step is the token reuse. Azure AD issues another access token for app2 without prompting the user to enter the credentials, enabling the seamless access across both applications. This is what we saw in the demo. This is what SSO is. So let's recap one more time, one by one, right? Azure AD is the cloud-based identity provider. Okay, this is used for securing the application, and you can able to control the user's access based on their roles and groups and other lot of stuff. Okay, so for good. And Azure AD use underlying auth2 and OpenID protocols to implement all of these things. Okay, now coming back to the implementation, you go to Azure Active Directory and go to the app registration. Create two app registration. One is for your front end, one is for your backend. Backend, let's say first we create a backend. So you will create, when you create, you will choose single tenant, redirect URI, you will give whatever the redirect, the port it is running. Okay. After that, so let's recap the registration part. You go to Azure Active Directory, go to app registration and click on new registration. After you click on new registration, what will happen? Let's say we are talking about the API. So when you go to API, you will be able to copy the client ID and the tenant ID. The important thing is the authentication part, right? So here, remember, we gave this URL as a redirect URL because this is locally running application. That's why this is the redirect URL. You can add more, but generally speaking, in an organization, if you want to implement this, your application will be deployed to various environment called dev, QA, staging or UAT, and last one is the production. Each environment will have its own registration. Remember that. Okay, it cannot be same, it will be different because the redirect URI will be different. Okay, so if I have to promote this application to production, probably I will have another one created that states production. Production URL will be different. If my application is, if let's say my Okay, so let's say I have to deploy the same application in production. This is my production URL. Okay, so what I should do is I should copy this and actually I should place it here. Okay, and I create a new application for production, meaning any environment. Okay, so remember that, that's important. Then after you do this, from the API perspective, you need to expose an API for someone to consume it. So you will create an application ID URI here, like click on add or click on add a scope. Automatically this will be auto generated. Can it be only auto generated? It's yes and no. It's unique. It's unique. So if you want to leave it that way, you can leave it, or you need to make sure the application ID URI is unique. You can give any meaningful name, your organization name slash application name slash whatever it is, as long as it is unique. Okay, after that, add a scope. Whatever your application needs the scope, you can have many scopes. Okay, that is also there. Depending on what scope you want and the application, we can configure it. Okay, so once you're done with this, we will create another application that is for the UI. Same thing, single tenant. Authentication will be your redirect, will be your SPA and your respective URL. So for example, this is my actual UI URL. Okay, so I will come here and I will replace this URL here. Okay, good. Then go to the API permission. You need to provide permission for this app to talk to your backend API. That's why you go to here, click on add permission, go here, select the respective app to which this is talking, like need permission. Like in our case, this was this one. We selected these two scopes, add permission, click on grant permission, done. This all concepts will be copy pasted in the, like whatever the settings needs to be copy pasted in the application. Now let's quickly go back to one of the application and see what we want. From API perspective, all what you wanted to do was go to this. So from API perspective, if you go to this web, what you have to install is Microsoft Identity.web. This package you need to install. After you install, go to the settings and place the settings here. For production, you will have the settings placed here. Okay, so we need to replace the client ID and tenant ID, and this is super important. Instance should be login.microsoftonline.com. Okay, for AD B2C and other things, this is different. Okay, now after these two, all way through, come back to the program.cs. In program.cs, what you need to do is you need to have this code. Basically, builder.service.order add authentication. We are adding the schema, and then this whole stuff. Actually, this from here till here, it's not required. Okay, this is the bare minimum code you need. The reason I gave this code also is sometimes when you do this from the first, you might encounter errors. If you always get 401, there is something you did wrong in the configuration. Okay, you can watch this video one more time and see what is the wrong, but this code will help you to debug what's going on. Like you can put a breakpoint here. If it comes here, which means it will tell you the message, what is wrong. Okay, that will be easy for you to debug. Or even if you have to reach out to me, you can tell what's wrong. Hey, this is what, Karthik, I'm getting error. I don't know what is that. It will be easy for me also to let you know quickly. Okay, so that's why this code is there. After this, all what you have to do is, there are two parts. You have to enable the authentication and authorization. Remember, placing these two in a random place will be a problem. Always keep this after the routing. First one is authentication, second one is authorization, not the other way around. Authentication, authorization difference you should know. Authentication is to check your credentials are correct. Authorization is to give you access to the resource if you are allowed to give resource access. That's the difference. Okay, I have other videos. I will give you reference videos for those things. So after you do those things, what you have to do is come to any of the controller. Let's say we are going to this controller. Okay, we will add authorize attribute. So the controller and all the methods inside the controller is protected now. After that, if you want to check the scope, we are checking it should at least have the read scope. From where this is taking, you see this Azure AD scopes read, which basically means it will go all the way to this environment and check one of the scopes are present here, because Azure AD scopes read is here. Okay, good. So for good. So this is from the API perspective. let's quickly take a look at the Angular perspective. So from Angular, right, there are a couple of packages you need to install. The main packages is Azure MSAL Angular and MSAL browser. These two are the main packages used for our Angular MSAL, that is doing this Azure AD and all of those things. Okay, so those two packages, and then you come to this environment. I've already configured everything. You need to replace the client ID, read scope, write scope, and then the tenant ID. Okay, all of these things, make sure you replace this server URL correctly. And then for your interest, if you come to app.config, this is the whole set of configuration where the Azure AD is working on it. Okay, now remember, when you come here, this is the place you need to replace. Okay, if you look at this, iPublic client application is there. In there, it is taking the ID from the configuration. Authority is login.onmicrosoftonline.com. Known authority is login.microsoftonline.com. Okay, followed by this tenant. So basically, as long as you configure this environment.ts properly, everything here is configured properly. Okay, it will work seamlessly without any failure. This is all inbuilt code. Don't worry about this. This is not used actually. I will clean it up. Actually, if you look at this, this is used for ADB2C. This is not used at all. So I'm going to clean this up because that will avoid confusion. So let's do that. Okay. Other than that, we don't have anything else. Remaining and all is part of the Angular application from Azure AD B2C. Only these are the important concepts you should know. So now we learned about Azure AD authentication, identity provider, SSO concept, all of those things in one single video. I hope you enjoy this video. If you like this video, do subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. Share this with your friends, share with your group. If you feel really useful, like it, comment it, and don't forget to subscribe. If you need any interesting video, I will give you details in the description. Go to that website and request for videos that you are interested in. Also put it in the comment section. All right. Okay guys, I'll see you in one of the next important video, Azure AD groups and roles configuration, right? Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tech tutorials. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified when we post new videos. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Happy coding!